Please welcome the star of E's Meet the Frasers, Matt Fraser. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
I can't even begin to tell you what this guy's he, him, she, her, they, them stupid voice does to the inside of my brain. It's way worse than chalk on a chalkboard. It's worse than chalk on a baby. It's really the worst thing you could imagine. So today what I thought I'd do is that I'd go over this video in particular with Matt Fraser, who's a famous psychic these days, and go over the techniques that he's using to try to pull one over on us regular folk.
Did you grow up with this gift as a psychic? Does it run in your family? How did this all come about?
So it's actually crazy. My grandmother had this ability, who passed it on to my mom and then in turn passed it on to me. And I remember going, to bed at night, and I felt like I was living that movie, The Sixth Sense, because every time I tried to go to sleep, every time I was alone, there was souls that would come in that would try to talk to me.
It's always interesting whenever you hear one of these psychics talk about their history, and it's always very close, if not the same, than some piece of fiction. You see the same with people that see aliens. For some reason, they look just like the aliens that we've seen traditionally in movies. Never anything different. Makes you wonder, right?
It's funny because when I look out onto the audience, it's almost like, the souls, it's almost like the souls line up behind them. So when I look onto the audience, it's like the audience disappears and all I see is dead people. Like your dad departed because he's right there behind you when I'm connecting. So no, and I also have like a young male that passed in tragedy right here. That's how I see them. But the funny part is that...
That was a little weird, wasn't it? I feel like that in particular is another example of Matt Fraser at work. Matt Fraser is one of these psychics that you see him less rely on classical techniques like cold reading and really get into the hot stuff. By hot stuff, I mean hot reading, meaning he has some pre-existing information and he's able to pinpoint a particular person in the audience and say, hey, you have this particular quality, or this particular person attached to you has passed on. I recently did a similar style video about Teresa Caputo, the Long Island psychic. YouTube did nuke that. Hopefully by the time this video goes up, that little transaction should have fixed itself. If not, the reason that I bring her up is because you see her often do live psychic demonstrations, meaning that she's not really in control of the audience and she's doing cold reading. She's going in a room cold and she's able to apparently tell people about their relatives and certain individuals that have passed on. I haven't seen an incident where Matt Fraser is in the same position. I've only ever seen him do it where he's in control of the audience or he's in control of the people around him. Even this clip in particular looks very, very weird, artificial, and he uploaded it on his channel. So it's not like something I found on a different channel where he doesn't have control of the content that gets uploaded.
Do you care to do a reading or two?
Absolutely.
Here today?
Do you mind if I get up?
You take it away. You take it away.
You do what you have to do. We don't know how this works.
And just for everybody at home, no one was pre-selected. He is literally just walking out into the audience.
Nobody may be pre-selected, but that's not to say that these people didn't have a conversation with Matt or either somebody from his team earlier on before the camera started rolling and gave up information that he could then use in this demonstration when the cameras are actually recording, which is what typically happens with psychics like this. They get all the information they need before the show even starts, and then when the cameras start going, that's when they start regurgitating this information as if it's coming to them fresh. Most of the time, the person is blissfully unaware that they're actually giving up useful information that's going to be used against them later on. For example, Matt Fraser or a team member could approach them before the show starts and says, hey, we're going to be recording later on, but just for the sake of brevity, is there anybody that you want to connect with, somebody that may have passed on, or anybody that you'd like to talk to from the other side, a soul as he likes to call him? And an innocent question like that might have a response such as, yeah, sure, of course. I'd like to talk to my dad. My dad passed away not so long ago. He had a heart attack and it was really hard in the family. And from that, he's able to squeeze out so much, as you're going to see in a perfect example in the next clip after this one.
Out into the audience.
I actually want to start right with you because when I was over there, your dad was sitting right behind you, letting you know that he's here. Can you take this?
Sure.
So know that this is just his way of acknowledging that he's here. And by the way, he's so excited. And this is how I see them. When I connect with them, I'll see them sitting behind the person, but then I'll start to feel and sense things of what they went through. And when I'm connecting with your dad, this man had many issues here in the physical world within his body when I'm connecting with him. And more importantly, when I'm speaking to him, I keep feeling like I can't breathe when I'm connecting with him, because he shows me there was lung issues. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You see techniques like this really common in the psychic world where the person is going to ask the participant if that makes sense. Now, this branches the participant only in a binary. They're only able to answer yes or no. And because it's such a simple question, they're always going to answer yes, because in this case, you're asking them, do you understand? Nothing that he said is outlandish so far in terms of understanding. So of course they're going to answer yes. Of course it's going to make sense that somebody who's passed on had trouble breathing. And this gives the psychic a hit, a positive. So now they seem like they're getting information that they couldn't possibly know.
He said to me, I never wanted to admit that I was sick. I didn't want to admit that things were wrong with me. He says, and I kept so much hidden on the inside. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
I can't tell you how much I hate this smug asshole and his self-righteousness here, taking advantage of a grief. And you're going to see that the information that he gives is not specific. None of it is actually any specific, and it could have been surmised from a 1-minute conversation before the camera started rolling. It's not to say that the participant is in on it, but they could have unwillingly given up information that he could then spin in this way and make it seem like it's coming to him fresh from the person that's standing behind him, the soul.
He says, and he wants you to know that on the other side, that he knows everything that you did for him. So even though he couldn't hear or he couldn't communicate, know it's his way of acknowledging that he knew that you were there. And I gotta tell you, your dad's funny on the other side when I'm connected with him.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Because he had such a good sense of humor. He says, let her know that I'm back to looking good, he's saying to me.
He was a good-looking man.
He actually just leaned over and kissed you when I'm connecting with him.
Could you imagine how little this guy actually cares about the people that he connects with? How insignificant he actually finds the individuals that he uses just to bolster his fame? This really is a perfect crime because the person can't speak for themselves. They're dead. So they only have to speak through their grieving partner that is obviously going to play along with Matt Fraser. They want to talk to this person. They want to believe. They want to have one more opportunity to say goodbye or to talk to their loved one.
Did your mom also depart?
Yes.
Because your mother's stepping forward now. This is what I mean. They all try to talk all at once. And she's like, what about me? I'm the mother. Aren't you going to talk to me? But know that her and your dad are together on the other side and that they are okay. And there's one other thing. I'm also connecting with the child that had passed as well.
Okay.
Where was the child that departed?
I had a sister that died just after birth.
She's with your mom.
Now, for this particular reading, I'm very conflicted because Matt Fraser doesn't seem the type of person to take random guesses when there are cameras on him. However, he does have control technically over this video as it is something uploaded to his channel. However, it seems to me like this isn't necessarily something of a guess. He probably knew ahead of time that somebody had passed on that is younger. You don't see psychics typically throw this out unless they're really dumb, like Sylvia Brown. However, Matt Fraser's a little bit more clinical in his approach. However, the reason I'm conflicted is her reaction. Her reaction seems to be that she's fishing for a particular person that fits this description.
I also want to talk about life support. Who passed on life support? Was that your dad?
Life support? It was my dad, yeah.
Hello, pay attention.
This particular reading does lead me to think that these people were talked to before the show started, because he's able to point directly at her and tell her, don't you have something with life support? Almost a reminder as if that was the conversation that she had had with him previously, or a member of his team. This technique is very common in the world of mentalism, which is the magic offshoot of mind reading style tricks. Now what happens is that you speak to members of the audience before the show, you get information that's going to be useful for the show, and then during the show, you use that information against them. Now, this in itself is an art form because you want the participants to not necessarily have been aware that any information was exchanged. However, even the most minimal of information could be something that a mentalist or psychic could use later on and make it seem like they got that information then and there.
This is what happens to me, is that they call me over when I'm connecting. I see them sitting behind you. And he kept saying, I'm the father, and he talked about life support. You understand that? So you had to take him off of life support here in the physical world.
Yes.
Know that your dad is saying that I'm sorry for what you had to go through and the choices that you had to make on my behalf.
Oh.
You know, your dad is acknowledging when I'm connecting that the first thing that he wants you to know is that he is okay, but also letting you know that even if he were to survive this, he says, I would have never been the same person. He says, so can you please let my daughter know that even though it was so hard to say goodbye and to make that choice, he says, I want you to know that I would have never been the same person that you knew and loved.
Thank you.
Her reaction here is really telling as to somebody who was spoken to before the show. I keep saying that, but imagine if you had a genuine psychic experience where you have somebody that looks like this fuck come up to you and tell you information that nobody else could possibly know. Of course, you'd be surprised. Of course, you'd be shocked. And I haven't really seen that from the participants in this particular audience.
There's also something else that I have to talk about. And I know that you don't want to bring it up, but you don't want to talk about it. But your dad tells me that before he had died, that there were issues that the two of you had here in the physical world.
Another technique that psychics use is the concept of dual reality. Dual reality meaning that there are two realities taking place at the same time. One that is the audience's perspective and their perception, and the other one is this individual participant's perception as to what's going on. Because there's a disparity in both perceptions as to what's taking place, the reaction from this participant isn't going to be as excited as what the audience is going to have, because the audience is only aware that he's coming up to this person cold and he's telling them all this information that he can't possibly know ahead of time. She knows she's had a conversation beforehand, so she's going to react accordingly. This is perfectly illustrated when he mentions to her specifically that she doesn't want to talk about this particular topic.
Because he talks about some emotional separations and some emotional issues that had gone on. Do you understand that? He says to me, and I want you to know that I never got to be the father that I should have been and the father that I could have been. Do you understand that? He says, and if I would have known that this was going to happen, and if I would have known that I was going to die, he said, I would have spent more time with you. Because you feel like you grew up not getting to know your dad or be there with your dad.
Damn, Matt, you're really going to do the only sister like that, huh? You're going to do the only sister and tell her that her dad wasn't around in her life? Bruh, I didn't know you were like this, man.
He says, and you care so deeply because you had to go through so many things yourself and by yourself. So your dad says, I wouldn't change a thing. He says, by the way that you were raised and for the woman that you are today, because he's acknowledging that.
Thank
Can I come give you a hug?
Exactly.
Can you come over this way?
Exactly.
It seems to me that Matt Fraser's technique is to get as much information from the participant before the show starts and before the cameras are rolling, and then not only give this information back to them, but supplement it with a lot of blabber, a lot of just yapping. In this case, a lot of what could have been a conversation that this person had, and really saying generic things to try to connect with them. The genius of this technique is interdispersing these conversations that he's having with the departed souls and giving them information that they had told him previously, such as how they passed away and maybe any sort of specific information about that particular incident. Also, do keep in mind that these souls are not there to defend themselves and talk for themselves. They're only being able to be channeled through Matt and through the emotion and the reactions of the participants.
So much that you do, we don't understand. But the two of you can nod. Was that experience cathartic in any way?
Now, one thing you hear often from fans of psychics, especially people that follow Matt Fraser's work, is that he's doing a service, that this is something that people like me, skeptics, really shouldn't shit on, because look what it's doing for the participants. They have one more chance to connect with their loved one. They have one more chance to create a memory with their loved one. And of course, I have to say, fuck off. This is retarded. This is a dumb take, because he's manufacturing fake memories with people that have been long departed that cannot argue for themselves for his own personal gain. Now, again, I hate to shill my own personal stuff, but I happen to teach a course, a long course, a 1,500 video course on magic, coin tricks, and specifically mentalism, which is mind-reading magic tricks. So the same tricks that these psychics use, I teach on the PigCake Magic Academy. You could find the link down below for that. For the low price of just a White Claw a month, the equivalent of a White Claw a month, which is $5, you get access to pretty much all those videos, and they'll show you how to be able to tell people the names of loved ones. You could tell them information that you couldn't possibly know, all more impressively than Matt Fraser and other psychics. I guess the moral of the story at the end of this video is don't be a prick, don't be an asshole. Also, if you have any other psychic entertainers that you want me to look and analyze, or analyze, as I like to say, my goodness, let me know in the comment section below.
I see you again, when 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 I see you again.